Ah, hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome to Times Square. Ever heard of it? Well, that's where our tour is going to be today. I'm sure you know a little bit about it, but you're going to know a lot more after we're done with this video today. Before we start the video, please like the video. Go ahead and give it a little thumbs up. Super easy. Doesn't take any time. Subscribe. That doesn't take any time. Just click it. Come on, help me out here. And also check out the Patreon. It's a big help. Anyways, that's all the business. It's a good one. It's going to be a good one because if you've been to New York, you've probably walked through this place. And chances are, there's a lot you don't know about it. So you're going to learn a ton today. Stu, are you ready to get this thing started?
Let's do it!
I like that energy. I like that enthusiasm. Well, I guess we could just go ahead and get this thing going. It's nice and empty. A beautiful day, not too hot like it's been. I can wear pants. What a coincidence, huh? It's not hot and I can wear pants and spare you the sight of my legs. All right, this is ridiculous. Let's just start this tour. You ready, Stewie?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, baby. Well, before we jump into Times Square, I want to point out a couple things. Behind me, you have this building. This is the Hotel Knickerbocker. Now, Times Square, first of all, let me tell you, let me just go ahead and blow your minds right off the bat. Times Square is called Times Square because of the New York Times. Oh, in 1904, they renamed this area, which was called Longacre Square at the time. They named it Times Square to convince the New York Times to put their headquarters here. I'm in the business of changing lives. You don't understand, but after hearing that fact, if you didn't already know that, I've changed your life. In 20 years, you're still going to remember that fact. Try, going to the, YouTube videos where, cats are farting or whatever and see if they change your life like that. Anyways, I digress. I wanted to talk about this building because this was built around the same time, 1904. This is called the Hotel Knickerbocker. Now, first of all, the word Knickerbocker was coined by a man named Washington Irving as the term for someone whose family traces back to the Dutch settlement of New Amsterdam. Oh, so like the Roosevelts were Knickerbockers, the Vanderbilts were Knickerbockers, that kind of thing. By the way, Washington Irving, I don't want to digress too much, but Washington Irving is the guy who wrote Sleepy Hollow, The Headless Horseman, Rip Van Winkle. Okay, but this is the Hotel Knickerbocker. This was built in 1904. Beautiful Beaux-Arts building. We've talked about Beaux-Arts a million times. It was very popular at the turn of the 20th century in New York, when New York was kind of exploding onto the world scene. All the buildings from around that time, all the fancy buildings, Grand Central, New York Public Library, Washington Arch, Municipal Building, all Beaux-Arts buildings. New York was kind of like, yeah, we're just as important as these European capitals. Give us some of that Beaux-Arts stuff. So it went up all over. The Hotel Knickerbocker was actually home to people like Enrico Caruso, the famous opera singer. F. Scott Fitzgerald stayed there. George Cohan, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But there's this funny story about how there was a jewel heist there, and they these thieves stole some jewels from some of the guests there, and then they were escaping. They were caught up to by police, and they tried to escape by squirting hot sauce in the police's eye. It's like out of like a old-timey cartoon. I guess today they'd probably just turn like submachine guns on people. It was an innocent time back then. Now let's go into Times Square. So Times Square, just so you know, is the intersection of Broadway and 7th. This is the third video we've done here, about this fourth video actually we've done in the squares, where Broadway intersects with a major north-south thoroughfare of New York. Broadway cuts west. So it intersects with these major north-south thoroughfares, creating the squares. Times Square, oh. So we're walking up to 43rd Street. We just started at 42nd Street. And we're walking into Times Square, baby. This is it, the most visited tourist destination in the entire world. They say that I guess the estimate was like 131 million people pass through here a year. Maybe not so much right now because it's kind of empty, but that's a lot. It's like over 300,000 a day. So like I was saying, Times Square got its name from the New York Times, which put its headquarters right in this building, which I'll show you here in a second. But before we cover that, I want to show you this building behind me. I want to knock this out here, Stewie. Look at this. You know about this building?
I do not.
So this building behind me is the former Condé Nast building. It was built in 2000, but more importantly, it's actually owned by the Durst Company. This is crazy. So the Durst Company was started by a Jewish immigrant named Joseph Durst. He came here in 1902. He was a tailor. He bought his first building in 1915. And today it's one of the biggest commercial real estate companies in the city, making it one of the biggest in the country. Still family owned. Seymour Durst, then passed it on to Douglas Durst. But more importantly, this is kind of nuts. You ever heard of Robert Durst, Stewie?
Yes,
Robert Durst is of this family. So Robert Durst, if you haven't read up on this guy, it's one of the craziest stories in New York crime history. So Robert Durst is the eldest son of Seymour Durst. and he was the heir apparent. He got passed over for his younger brother, Douglas. But this guy's totally like, he's pretty bonkers. In fact, his wife went missing in 1982. Everyone suspected him of doing it. They were on the rocks. She never got on a train. He didn't even get arrested for it. The family of the wife was always pushing to have him, question and whatnot. Yeah, they passed over him. Then they reopened the case in 2000. A lot of people had believed that his best friend had helped cover for him for that disappearance. Go figure. After the police start snooping around, she turns up dead. Nuts. Once again, he doesn't get really questioned for it. They, for some reason, don't question for it. Then he gets arrested for actually the murder of what was then his neighbor, who was dismembered and thrown in a river in Texas. He actually goes to trial and is acquitted of the murder for that, even though he admitted to chopping up the body. Fast forward to 2015, there's a documentary called The Jinx, which is really good, released about his life. And in the documentary, at the end of the documentary, he pretty much admits to killing all of those people. And then now he's on trial again. But anyways, Robert Durst, Durst family, the Durst Corporation. It's funny, you go to the website, it's like, the Durst Corporation, all family values, integrity, innovation, whatever. And you're like, yeah, well, Robert Durst killed a bunch of people. Pretty crazy. But that's the building right there. That's one of their many buildings. They own the Bank of America Tower as well. A ton of very important buildings. So you can start seeing Times Square here. So Times Square started out, so in the early 1600s, when it was still New Amsterdam, all this area here was known as Great Kill. It was a bunch of creeks that just kind of converged. Slowly it started developing into a carriage making center. And it was actually a carriage making center for a very long time. Up until it became Times Square, actually. It was known as Longacre Square because of an area in central London known as Longacre. It was an area where they made lots of carriages. Longacre was this big grass path there. It was really old, actually, and they named this Longacre Square. Now it's called Times Square because of the building right behind me. This building right here. So this is one Times Square. This was the Times Square headquarters when they built it in 1904. The New York Times, Adolph Ochs was the editor-in-chief of the New York Times. He's like, hey, I'm going to go ahead and put it here. And he convinced the city to rename this whole area to Times Square. Oh, as in Herald Square, like Herald Square did that a little earlier. Remember that? I did Herald Square in a different video. Check it out, sick plug. Hey, what's up, man? So they set up their shop here. Times Square sets up here in 1904. They actually celebrated New Year's here by shooting off fireworks, right? Kind of cool. Then they were the ones who made the decision to start lowering the ball. You can actually see the ball on top over there, and it's lowered every single New Year's, at midnight. And they got that idea from time balls downtown. So time balls were used back when there was no time zones and none of that, and a ball would lower all the way to the base of a pole at the same time every day to actually synchronize everyone's watches down to the second. And the reason they couldn't do fireworks anymore because the neighborhood started to fill up. So they had to come up with a new idea. They took this idea of dropping the time ball and synchronize everyone's watches down to the second for the new year so that we would all live in peace and harmony. Isn't that beautiful? Work like a charm, baby. But this is the Times Square, where it got Times Square out its name, New York Times. Also, too, that building is completely empty except for the Walgreens on the base because they make so much money from the advertisements on the building, they don't have to put anyone inside. Up to $4 million a year to keep an advertisement on there. That comes out to $12,000, something like that, dollars a day to keep an advertisement on this building. Kind of nuts. So I was telling you that in 1904, you had the New York Times building moved here. You had the Knickerbocker built. It was also around that time that Broadway theater started to come up here. Let's go this way. So just so you know, look at that, the American flag. America, look at that beautiful flag. That's kind of funny, it's covered in surveillance cameras. America, baby. Just so you know, Times Square is not really anywhere you can walk here without being on camera somewhere. So anyways, I was saying that in 1904, this area started to really change pretty quickly. And the reason was because of these, because of these hotels, because of these theaters. The first major theater that was put here was in 1893, then another one in 1895. Then by the early 1900s, they just started sprouting up. They hit their heyday here in the 1920s. There was 80 theaters here. Just so you give you an idea, there's about 40 Broadway theaters now. What a Broadway theater is, all a Broadway theater is, just so you know, is the production, the size of the production, okay? A Broadway theater means it's 500 or more seats. off Broadway is 100 to 499, and an off Broadway is less than 100. That's all it means. Isn't that crazy? You're learning stuff, baby. You're learning stuff. That's what these videos are for. Come on. All right, so I wanted to point out this building here. This is the Paramount building, okay? So the Paramount building was built here in 1927. You can see some little Art Deco elements. Pretty building, but just a little trivia about Paramount. I actually think I'd cover this in my Upper West Side video. Yeah, but Paramount actually got its name from an apartment building in the Upper West Side. One of the founders of the company actually lived in that apartment building. It's called the Paramount. And the actual mountain is a real mountain in Ogden, Utah, where another one of the founders of the company grew up as a kid. Kind of interesting, huh? He had sketched it and drawn it as like the whole thing. But yeah, there's the Hard Rock Cafe, which by the way was started in 1971. You guys know this, but the Hard Rock Cafe, like the whole thing with memorabilia there was actually kind of an accident. What happened was Eric Clapton used to go to one over in England, and he wanted to mark his table. So he put a guitar, one of his guitars, over his table. And then Pete Townsend from The Who did the same thing, and then it kind of became a thing. I just remember growing up as like a kid and like having a Hard Rock Cafe shirt was like the coolest thing ever, you know? Not so much anymore, I guess. Oh, there's bubblegum shrimp too. You guys know that from the movie, that famous movie, Forrest Gump, that movie starring Haley Joel Osment. But here's a little funny trivia, Bubba Gump. Chris Pratt used to work at the Bubba Gump in Hawaii, and actually that's how he was discovered, working at a Bubba Gump shrimp. Talk about hitting the lottery. Very few Bubba Gump shrimp employees have gone on to be that famous. Or maybe they have, I don't know. But that's Bubba Gump shrimp. And over here we're gonna cross. Here's another little tip when you're in Times Square. Don't take anything from anybody. You know, if someone's trying to hand you something, don't take it. Chances are they're trying to scam you, baby. A lot of tourists here. A lot of people who don't know any better. We're gonna keep walking. Oh, I forgot to mention this, Stewie, look. They have ABC offices here. They shoot Good Morning America. You guys know that TV show? I guess the TV show you watch if you want to watch like a 10-year-old barbershop quartet, or you want to learn to make a casserole from Michael Strahan. That's where you watch it. They film it here. Pretty cool. It's actually called Times Square Studios. It's actually owned by Disney. Disney owns a lot of land in this area, and actually they're partly credited with kind of cleaning the area up, but also Disneyfying it. Also too, here to my left, you can see down the street there, it's kind of interesting, is Sardi's. You can't really see it too well, but it's Sardi's. I gotta mention it. Sardi's is kind of like, you know, it's from the 1920s. It's been here forever. It's where the Tony Award was actually invented. A guy named Brock Pemberton came up with the idea, and to honor his deceased friend Antoinette Perry, or partner actually, he came up with this idea of a Tony Award. This area, you have like over 1,000 caricatures of all these famous Broadway and TV stars, but that's like an institution for Broadway theaters, which are all over this area. By the way, Broadway theaters are called that because they used to be down, you know, near City Hall, and then they moved to Broadway area, close to like Union Square, around that area. But they no longer have anything to do with the street Broadway. We're moving, baby. How you doing, Stewie?
Doing good.
Yeah?
Doing good.
Is this stressing you out, being in this area?
No, because it's not as packed as it normally is.
Yes, that's another thing to keep in mind. This area is insane normally. Right now, it's pretty quiet, which is kind of nice. Though we just walked past all these like bird houses. I don't know what bird, you know, cages or whatever. I don't know what they are. They're like art pieces. That's art, baby. I don't know. What can I tell you? But behind me, this is pretty cool. So this, I remember back in the day on MTV watching TRL. This is where they would have their offices, the Viacom building. The Viacom building actually replaced a very important building, which was the Astor Hotel. So Astor, the Astor family owned a lot of the land that eventually became Times Square. If you don't know the Astor family, one of the most important names in New York City history. The Astor Place, Astoria, Queens, those things all came from Astor. In fact, John Jacob Astor IV died on the Titanic. And so the Astors made their fortune in real estate, and the Astor family owned a lot of this land. They bought it in the early 1800s, and obviously it boomed, and they built the Astor Hotel here. So the Astor Hotel was actually opened in 1904, and then it closed in 1967, but it was super important. I mean, it was like the successor to the Waldorf Astoria, which was also an Astor family hotel. And it was, well, the Astor, you know, Waldorf Astoria was actually demolished to build the Empire State Building, but I digress. Anyways, it was here till 1967. LaGuardia had his like election win party there. It was such a big deal, but it was torn down in 1967. Today it's home to the Viacom building. In case you don't know what Viacom is, they pretty much own everything. They own like Showtime, you know, MTV, Comedy Central. You know, so we gotta try to make them happy. Maybe they'll hire us, right, Stewie?
Hopefully.
One day, we'll see. But that's where they used to do TRL, when all the fans and stuff would look down. Pretty cool. I remember watching that and then seeing old Counting Crows videos and you know, Third Eye Blind, back when they used to show videos on MTV. Now YouTube's the future, right, guys? Or so we hope. So that's you know, Viacom, which actually merged with CBS. That's why you see that huge CBS thing there. Also the Minskoff Theater, you can see that sign there, the Minskoff Theater, home to Lion King, which, by the way, Julie Taymor, very famous director, is the one who kind of put it up. It's probably one of the best-selling musicals of all time. Over 100 million people have seen it on 6 continents. Kind of crazy. Spoiler alert, Simba's dad dies. Sorry. It's a good movie, though. I remember when I was a kid. All right, we're walking still. It goes up to 47th Street, by the way. This is where it's going to start to stress me out with all the people and stuff crossing crosswalks. So here to the left, you can start seeing the Marriott Marquis. The Marriott Marquis was actually opened in 1985, and it was kind of part of the whole process of revitalizing this area. It's actually the biggest hotel in the city. It's like almost 2,000 rooms. It's insane. But when they built it, they actually had to destroy and demolish a bunch of theaters. So as part of it, they actually had to build a theater as like a concession. So they built a theater. Pretty good place to sneak in and use the restroom. All the hotels, by the way, your best bet if you're looking for a restroom in New York, use the restrooms at hotels.
You know, like we pose like this.
Kind of crazy. This area, as insane as it is, you can't deny how much energy and people and things there are here. I remember when I first came to New York I did a job interview in this area. And I remember just getting out of the cab and just being like, holy crap, this is insane. Look at all these people, the energy. We're at the crossroads of the world. Wow, it's so intense. This is New York City, baby. Now get me the hell out of here. That's exactly what I thought. Speaking of which, you see the Thomson Reuters building down there at the corner. The Thomson Reuters, that's I think it's a Canadian company and it merged with Reuters. Thomson was a Canadian company, merged with Reuters. But they actually bought out the company I used to work for. When I came to New York as a young lawyer, I worked for a startup that actually got bought out by Thomson Reuters. The offices are right there. Good riddance, baby. Holy Lord. I wasn't even very good at what I did, to be quite honest. So now we're going to cross here. You're going to see lots of like, you know, cartoon characters and all kinds of like, you know, people handing you stuff. Don't take anything. But, you know, if you take pictures of these cartoon characters, they're going to want money, just so you know. And they ain't taking no for an answer, all right? Nothing worse than getting your ass beat by, you know, Elmo in the middle of Times Square. So just give them a couple bucks. That being said, this is a PSA. If you're ever in New York City and you see like let's say a street performer or something you like, you know, someone performing something and you take a picture or film, give them money. It's not, I mean, these people are doing something for you. You're gonna support them. That's one of my pet peeves, when people just go up to like a great street performer and film them and don't give them anything. As if they're like some kind of like, you know, wild animal in the zoo or something. I guess you don't have wild animals at the zoo, they're in captivity, but anyways. Oh, we just walked by that. So here, check it out. So that's George M. Cohan. That's George Cohan. He was actually a songwriter. He wrote Their Grand Old Flag. He wrote Over There. There's, so it's the ones like, Johnny, get your gun, get your gun, get your gun, Johnny, get that one. He wrote all these like old-timey songs that were very like jingoistic, like, you know, anthems for going to war. Your Grand Old Flag, that song, he wrote those songs. But that's him right there. And then over here, another thing to keep in mind too is that Times Square is actually only the south part where the New York Times building is. The north part is actually considered Father Duffy Square. Oh, a little trivia. So we're technically in Father Duffy Square right now, and that's him right here. You know, it's crazy. You see people taking pictures and doing all the Instagram posts and everything. They estimate that on busy days here in Times Square, there are 17,000 Instagram posts being put up, which is why all the ads cost so much, because every time they're taking a picture here, you get free ads on stuff. Like on this video right now. None of these people are paying me for ads right now. All right, couple things too. I'll show you this. Right behind me, that's TKTS. The TKTS booth was started in 1973. You used to work for TKTS, right?
I sure did.
How was that? How was that experience?
The crowds, just a crazy amount of people.
Well, the crowds are terrible. And also, too, so the way it works is they give you the overflow tickets. So if there are tickets that don't sell out, then you sell those through TKTS. So it's never going to be Lion King. It's never going to be, you know, Wicked. It's going to be like, you know, I don't know, Fast and the Furious, the musical or something, you know. So that's TKTS. And then you have here 47th Street. Then you go further up and there's Broadway. Also, too, you have this right here. The booths are closed. Oh.
That's where they would list the shows.
That's where this is where they'll list them if you're ever here.
Discount for the show.
Yes, but here's a little hack. I'm going to give you guys a little info. If you ever want to see a Broadway show in New York, the best way to do it is have someone else pay for it, baby. Woo, baby, they're expensive, so there's your free hack. All right, so another thing too, it's very famous. Times Square has always been like a area to congregate. People meet each other here. Just like this kind of centerpiece of New York, and one of the reasons because it was kind of built as a subway center, all the subways that converge here. So remember this, the first line of the subway opened in 1904 as well. It's a very important year in Times Square. So that subway had like a little hub here. I can get into the subway in a different, I guess, video, but I guess if I tell you one thing about the subway, if you're ever on the subway and the cars are filled, but there's one car empty, don't go into it. There's a little tip for you. So because this area was always like an area of congregation stuff, you got lots of classic photos and things that happen here. In fact, there used to be a little zipper, a little ticker with all the news right around the New York Times building. This is also where the KISS, the Alfred Eisenstadt, famous Eisenstadt photo for Life magazine was taken, where George Mendonça is grabbing Greta Friedman, at least that's who they think that they were, and was giving her a kiss, you know, to celebrate the end of World War II. But a little trivia about that. First of all, that guy, George, was with his girlfriend after they left the movies, and he still grabbed that woman. And two, that woman didn't really want to do that. She actually said later on in like interviews and stuff that he just kind of totally overpowered her. So pretty much it's a famous photo of assault in the streets of New York. Interestingly enough, there's still guys like that running around New York today. You can go down to the subway and see them. Those guys aren't getting any parades thrown for them, I'll tell you that right now. So you can see down there, that's all Times Square here. And we're gonna pop up here and I'll show you this statue of Father Duffy, who by the way was a chaplain during the war here in the United States. Pretty famous, and we'll climb up to the red steps, which were put here in 2008. Let's climb up, baby. Kind of crazy, you got all these people here. Well, so here we go. We made it to the top. You can see all of that behind me. That's the whole point of this thing. You get a nice, great view, and you can put all the people in one place. Want to get in front of me there, Stewie, so you can see behind me? Pretty cool. You got all the view here of Times Square. So it's important to keep in mind, Times Square today is kind of a tourist nightmare. It normally is very packed, but it's still a very important crossroads of the world, you know. This is kind of a reflection of everything that's going on in New York City and in the greater country and in the world kind of at any given point. Today it's all, corporate ads and lights and stuff, but also too, to keep in mind, this is kind of interesting. You're required to put up these lit up billboards and signs by the actual zoning regulations in this area because it's become such a defining part of Times Square. So a little bit of, let's recap, right? First of all, Times Square, named after the New York Times. That's one thing I promise you're not going to forget. Second of all, this area has changed a lot, okay? So it started out as wildlife, right? Then it becomes a horse and carriage area. In fact, William Vanderbilt had a horse exchange right here, which became the Winter Garden Theater. Then it kind of started to become a commercial hub around the time of the turn of the 20th century. The New York Times moves here, the hotels move here, the subway passes through, Broadway theaters start coming up. Then in the early 1900s, because of the popularity of this, lots of people pass through. Then billboards and lights, the electricity was kind of developed in the late 1800s, and they kind of converged here because there was so many people passing through all the time. Then after the Great Depression, this area starts falling into decay, and those same people were passing through because there was, we're right near the piers, all this stuff, people were passing through, but it kind of became a little seedier. Prostitution, peep shows, strip clubs, all that kind of stuff. Started to get slowly cleaned up in the late 70s or 80s. They made lots of pushes to woo companies here. Disney opened the new Amsterdam Theater in the 90s. Different companies set up their headquarters here, and it slowly started to change. Today, it is a huge, huge, important commercial and tourism center here in New York City. So you can see it all behind me. Pretty cool, right? And right now we're on the red steps, which were put here in 2008, like I said, as a way to congregate people. It actually holds a Guinness Book of Records record for the highest concentration of fanny packs in the entire world at any given moment. But yeah, we're pretty much done here with the tour. You know, I think this is a good opportunity to tell you guys, if you ever come to New York, buy local. I know you see all these signs for like Olive Garden and whatever, but always shop local. Not really what the vibe you get here, but anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, give it a thumbs up, give it a subscribe. That helps a ton. It's so easy, and you get all the videos from here on out. And also, too, please check out my Patreon. That's a huge help. Helps me to keep making these things. Helps keep Stewie living in a penthouse above Central Park. Right, Stewie?
Right.
All right. Well, I'm pretty much done. I don't know what to tell you. Pretty much at the end of this thing. I guess I'm going to go get as far away from this place as possible. All right. See y'all later. Sick.